Poor mechanic helps a girl with a broken pump. He had no clue she owned 3,000 acres of vineyards. The sound of hope often comes disguised as the hum of an old engine. Eli Turner wiped the grease from his hands onto the corner of his already stained coveralls and stared at the sputtering water pump like it had personally insulted him. The early morning sun had just begun to rise above the hills of Sonoma County, casting golden rays across the dusty yard of Turner's Auto and Farm Repair, a shack more than a shop, where miracles were rare, but effort never failed to show up. It was already hot. Too hot for April. Too hot for a man who hadn't had more than 2 hours of sleep in 2 nights, thanks to his mother's worsening condition and the relentless bills piling up like junk in his backyard. Still, Eli wasn't one to complain. He was the guy people turned to when they couldn't afford big city mechanics. A good heart on a blue-collar budget. So when the dusty green Jeep limped into his lot with a trail of steam hissing from under the hood, he didn't hesitate. The driver stepped out, tall boots, jeans covered in dried mud, a red flannel shirt, and tired eyes that looked like they'd seen too much of the world too young. "Pump's gone," she muttered, pulling off a leather glove. "She's been overheating all morning." Eli nodded, kneeling beside the engine. "I can take a look, but fair warning, this might take a while. You're a bit off the beaten path." "I figured," she replied. "I just couldn't risk it blowing out on me before I got to town." "Name's Eli," he offered, wiping sweat from his brow. "Grace," she replied, shaking his hand. He noticed her palms, calloused, rough, not the kind of hands you'd expect on someone with a name like Grace. They looked like work had been her life. Eli worked quietly, talking only when necessary. Grace wandered the edge of the shop, watching an old mutt named Duke flop in and out of the shade. She seemed curious, but not nosy. Observant. Patient. Like someone who didn't mind waiting, maybe because she'd done so much of it already. "So, Grace," Eli said finally, "what brings you out this way?" "I manage some land up north. Vineyard work mostly. Irrigation line burst last night, and I was heading into town to pick up parts. Didn't realize the pump in this old thing was shot." "Vineyard, huh?" he said, tightening a bolt. "That sounds fancy." She smiled faintly. "Not as fancy as you think. It's mostly dirt and debt." He chuckled. "That I can relate to." An hour passed, then 2. Eli did what he could, scrounging parts from old machines and making temporary fixes with creativity born from necessity. As he worked, Grace helped where she could, fetching tools, holding things in place, even offering him half a granola bar from her pack when his stomach growled audibly. By noon, the sun was brutal. Eli had beads of sweat rolling down his face, but the pump finally whirred with a reluctant kind of life. "She'll get you back," he said, wiping his hands. Grace looked at him, genuinely surprised. "You're not going to charge me, are you?" Eli shrugged. "Not for a patch-up job. Besides, you helped." She looked like she wanted to say something more, but stopped herself. "You always this kind to strangers?" she asked softly. He smiled. "Nah. Just those who hand over their last granola bar." A week passed. Then 2. Eli had nearly forgotten the encounter. The days blurred together, repairs, invoices, and his mother's worsening condition. He was down to his last $100 when a black SUV pulled into the yard, clean and polished, an odd sight among the rust and grime. A sharply dressed man stepped out. "You Eli Turner?" he asked. Eli wiped his hands. "Yeah. I work for Ms. Grace Kavanaugh." Eli blinked. "Grace? She said you helped her a few weeks ago. With her Jeep." The man handed Eli a large envelope. "She wanted to say thank you." Inside was a check. $10,000. Eli stared in disbelief. "There's more," the man added. "She's expanding her operations. Needs someone who knows how to fix things. She's offering you a position." Full-time mechanic for all her equipment. Health insurance. Retirement. And access to housing, if needed. Eli's voice caught in his throat. You're kidding. She owns Kavanaugh Vineyards. Over 3,000 acres. One of the largest in Northern California. That evening, Eli stood outside his mother's window at the nursing home, watching her sleep peacefully for the first time in days. The check in his pocket meant he could pay for her treatments, no more scraping by, no more choosing between medicine and rent. He pulled out his phone and called the number on the card. Grace answered. I don't know what to say, he said quietly. Then don't say anything, she replied. You helped me without knowing who I was. No expectations, no ego. That's rare. I want people like that around me. A pause. I believe in paying kindness forward, Eli. You just helped me remember how much it matters. A month later, Eli stood at the edge of a hill, looking out at row after row of grapevines stretching to the horizon. He had a team now. A small one, but they looked to him. Trusted him. The job came with long hours and new challenges, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged somewhere bigger than himself. And every now and then, he and Grace would walk the land together, talking not about what they had, but what they could build, two people who had lived through hardship and found something better, not through luck, but through kindness. Sometimes, the smallest acts carry the greatest weight. A shared granola bar. A greasy handshake. A man who fixed a broken pump, not knowing he was helping someone who could change his life forever. Because humanity has a way of showing up when you least expect it, and in the most unexpected people. And that's where real wealth begins. Not in the vineyards, but in the heart.